We're ready?
Yeah.
Oh, we're ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, we met in Madison,
Right.
and I'd like you to maybe share your story with us about, how you started Aikido in Madison and how that went.
Well, I went to Madison to go to school. So the highest priority was school rather than Aikido. And so for the first few years, I didn't have a start a dojo, but I would go to Chicago or to Milwaukee to teach. And after a few years, some of the students in Chicago and Milwaukee came to Wisconsin to go to school, so they wanted to have a dojo there. But I was still reluctant to do that. And what's happened was that John Pushner, so I used to go to the lab, and we lived in a house that had 5 guys, so each person had one night to cook, and we ate between 5 and 6, and so whoever cooked that night would have to have everything ready at 5. We'd go home, eat, leave at 6, go back to the
lab, yeah.
and then come back about 12. And between the lab and the house was a bar. It was a Brat and Brau or whatever. So I'd go in and have
And Brat and Brau was a real well-known bar in Madison.
Yeah,
What I can remember. Yeah.
right. So and drop off there, have a beer, and then go home. And one night, this guy, I was drinking and beer, and this guy came up and said, "Well, whether I knew any martial arts?" I said, No, I didn't know anything. And he says, "You must know something. You look like you're martial arts." No. Then he grabbed my belt.
And you have to know John, because he's very pushy kind of guy. And not only that, but he's just kind of in your face.
He was Michael's student.
Yeah. So, yeah. And he wasn't a big guy at all. No, he wasn't a big guy. But he was just one of those guys that, he was really inquisitive, but always just somewhat, pushy was probably the right word.
Pushy, yeah. So he grabbed my belt, and I did a little lock on him, and he says, "You know something." So what is it? So I said, Aikido. Oh, that's it. He says he was training with this guy Michael that did karate, and he also did judo with
Bill
Hovenstad.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, and Bill also knows a little about Aikido, so I'm going to check with him, and you can start a seminar group. He was teaching it in the YWCA,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is up on the center of Madison.
It's on the Capitol there, right where the Capitol is. There was a YWCA, and they taught on the 8th floor of the YWCA, yeah.
Right next to the swimming pool. And it was a small little alcove in the side of the swimming pool that had a few mats. So Bill taught judo there, and then when he found out that I did Aikido, he moved all his students to take Aikido, and he convinced, since he taught there for a long time, he convinced the administrative staff to convert the judo class to an Aikido class, and that's how we started, really. And so the first group were about 6 or 8 people. We had cops.
Yeah, majority were cops, actually, weren't they?
Yeah.
So Dane County and Dane County or something?
So in Madison, in Wisconsin, there's local cops, city cops, and then there's
like a sheriff's department.
the highway patrol that had jurisdiction of all of Wisconsin highway, and they came and checked us out. So we had some good times there, and so through that we did Aikido, and Kushner told Michael that
that I should show up. So he's in my karate class, and he said you have to meet this guy named Clyde Takeguchi, and that I should start Aikido. And I'm like, yeah. So one day I did show up, and I watched the class. I sat in Seiza, I remember, for like the whole hour and a half, and I was very polite and thinking to myself the whole time. You see, he's got some big guys that he's throwing around, but I'm thinking, this stuff doesn't work. It looks like dance, really, and I can't believe like these guys are like just falling for this guy. And besides, he's kind of small, So after the class, Clyde with a big smile on his face comes up to me and he goes, "So what do you think?" And I said, "Well, it's an interesting art, meaning it sucks, basically, And he kind of laughs just like that. And he just laughed just like that. And he goes, "Oh, well, do you want to go out on the mat and try to hit me?" And I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Like, whoa, what a gift!" It's because I really figured I could clock this guy. So we get ready, and I go to punch him, and next thing you know, he just knocked me right on my butt. And so I kind of dust myself off. I get up, and I'm used to other things where people take you out in a whole different way. And so then I try again, and I think I did a combination of kick and a punch, and he still does the same thing to me. And he just laughs, and he didn't. I mean, I could fall, so it didn't hurt. Well, it did hurt, but I could get up again. And then I tried 3 times, and each time he took care of me like it didn't really matter what I did, And I just was so fascinated by this that it didn't make any sense. So then I got up for the 3rd time, and I said, "So when are your classes?" Basically, so then I started, and I would come to class, and it was just a blast, and it was just really cool. And these guys were big, but you could move them, if you did things right. And the thing is, I was for myself, it was very hard to move from karate to Aikido because I was so used to clashing and wanting to fight and win that why give up your line? Why go to so much trouble to move them when you could just punch them out? So that was my philosophy for a while, quite a few years.
Well, I mean, so we had students that were
gifted,
ex-judo people, and then there were the cops, and the cops were so this was in the
70s, early 70s, 72, yeah.
And so this was when they had the riots in Wisconsin and all that. So all these cops were, during the riots in Wisconsin, all the cops that you saw pictures of were those, highway patrolmen. I mean, they were big, and a lot of them did karate, and they were trained to beat people up. I mean, they were nice in a sense, but they beat you up nicely, So they wanted to learn how to take people down without beating them up. So we tried to teach them. We did Sankyo, and we did all these locks so that they could handcuff people, and they had fun. But they also realized that even if we were smaller, we could still, once we got a lock, we could control any big person. And there are a lot of stories about these guys. And so Wisconsin had these cops were usually by themselves, one person per car, and they would patrol the highways. So if you have a drunk person, they didn't have that much drug problems at that time, but mainly drunks. But they're big farmers, Wisconsin farmers. They're huge, and so they had to take care of these guys that they could, control them without them looking like they got through, got beat up, and then they could take them back with cuffs. So they didn't look like, when they took the picture, they didn't look like they're all beat up. And so they loved it. And so we continued.
And here we are, many, many years later.
So you guys actually, you lived together and had a dojo?
Yeah, in South Carolina, we had a small space behind our house. Plus, we had another place where we practiced with people. Like a school, high school, and had a program there. And it was Clyde's dojo. I did all the research to get him to do this, so that was great. He was really happy with that move. And
well, so we were in Wisconsin, and so Michael was an undergraduate. He graduated, and I was a grad student. And we, once you graduated, we were going to go to get your master's or whatever. He decided to travel around the world. And when he traveled, I went to
NIH was in,
yeah. So I went to NIH, and then he traveled for a year. And by that time, I had moved down to South Carolina. And so he called from Greece or whatever, saying that he was going to come. He wanted to come visit and train with me. So he said he'll be here a certain date. Then all of a sudden, like 4 o'clock in the morning, he calls me up and he goes, "Well, I'm in south of the border." Remember that?
Yeah.
So
it was North Carolina somewhere, wasn't it?
Well, so
Yeah,
I was calling, what border? Canada? The U.S.? I mean, what border are you talking about? South of what border? Well, it was south of, actually, it was south of North Carolina.
Yeah, right there.
And so right there, there's a
trap.
tourist trap called South of the Border.
Yeah.
Well, so this was like 4 o'clock in the morning. So he said he was going to come down. He'll be down shortly. So I waited that whole day, and I went to the lab and all of that, and he didn't come back until late that evening. And apparently, there was some problem. People getting some problems with hitchhikers either getting beat up or hitchhikers robbing some people that picked them up. So one of those things happened. So when Michael was at south of the border, no one would pick him up.
So he was stranded for a period of time. Yeah.
So then he had to take a bus to Charleston. So that's the reason why it took such a long time. Talking about these old days. And so that's how we got together, and then we lived together a couple places, and of course Michael wanted to have a dojo. I didn't want to have a dojo, so we would go. So at that time there was a group, Aikido group in the Charleston area at the Air Force Base. So we would go there to visit and to train, and Michael loved it so much that he wanted us to start our own dojo.
Yeah, it was just a whole. Idea. It was a whole different style. This gentleman that was a teacher. So and he was pretty mellow about it, and I was like, "Oh man, I can't do this style." So then, in fact, but what happened one time is the guy ended up testing me. So I'm with Clyde, so I'm like 4th Q. And this guy gives me a test, and Clyde's there even, and the guy gives me first Q. Like I jumped to like 3 ranks, so now I walk out of his dojo, I'm a first Q. We get into the car, we're driving away, and he goes, "Yeah, you're no first Q, get out of here. Like, you're like 3rd Q at best, just because you passed that test." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm a first Q, man, I'm a first Q. I love this dojo. Needless to say, you get your rank from your teachers, so I was still like 4th Q or something like that. So anyway, but it was funny. But because of that, I think he finally decided we better get a dojo. What was it? Aikido? Was it Charleston Aikido Club or what was it called?
I can't remember.
I remember what it was. Something we were in Mount Pleasant. It must have been Mount Pleasant Aikido.
Yeah.
Mount Pleasant Aikido. Yeah, that's what it was called. And it was at a high school. And that's where we had. But then we had a training facility behind our house besides. and that we trained at, and then so he and I did a lot together, and I was like his yujidashi. I was living kind of serving, and when we travel, I was what they call his otomo. So I was the guy that took care of him when we traveled, like Brian is for him now. And then in India, so you were kind of maybe like his personal slave as he traveled around, and then you would take ukemi and stuff like that, and get into trouble. It was great, And then
yeah. So when we're there, so we bought a house actually, and so which was a few miles from the beach. So we'd do, weapons and meditation out in the beach.
Yeah, and then Clyde, he would do this thing with bokken, and if you cut a bokken really well against bamboo, you could cut bamboo just right in half. But if you didn't do it well, we'd just come back and do this, and so we would train in the morning, and he would take his bokken and go like, and I come back and I go, and then the next time, it took me a long time to ever. And one time I go, and I go, you see that? And it's more often than not, it was like it'd snap back at me, and he'd go, you'll get it eventually, So, but and then the one thing that he did do for Joe, he taught this 22 count kata, which was a really unique kata that Takeguchi Sensei had developed, and it was interesting because not many people knew it because it was from Hawaii really, and later on, years later, when I took an exam in California for my Nidan, I did this kata, and the 31 Joe kata was really popular, but 22 no one had seen, and so it was really nice. It was one of those katas where people were just, so surprised to see something so different because they trained on the East Coast and then came to the West Coast, and so they were like, wow, what some people thought I was a Joe master because of this kata after this test. It was pretty funny. I think. Well, certainly the teaching has changed. I mean, I think in the States, you got a really breadth of teachers that are really, really excellent. Before maybe you got to really go searching out for teachers that were really good and had that you may really, really respect. And now I think the quality of teaching has gotten a lot better. I think the students are getting. Teachers are sharing more sophisticated things at an earlier time in people's training than before, so that I think has changed. What else?
Yeah, I think teaching has changed only because one thing I think is the American style of teaching. People ask all these questions that they don't, in the old traditional way, you teach 3 or 4 techniques or whatever, but people wouldn't question what was there. They would just train and try to figure out what the instructor did. I mean, now people ask questions, or you try to, even now I try to break down what the technique so that it's much more palatable in much smaller chunks of movement or information, more IT oriented, I guess, in a sense. But I think that so people have a better idea, but the big issue is that people don't train as much, they don't practice, there's no, to be good, I think you have to put time in. People don't put enough time in, physical time in. They might think about it a lot, but they don't do anything. So it gets to be, whether you get to be better, you have better teaching, or you have the old style of teaching with a lot of practice. I think it's the high road and the low road. The amount of time it takes to be good, basically the same. It's whether you put time in or mentally or physically, I think, in a sense. So it makes that much difference, I think.
What's your ideal amount of time that you should practice a week, or to progress, or?
Well, mentally all the time. I think that the Aikido it's applicable on the mat and off the mat, so you have to be able to philosophy-wise, doesn't really make that much difference. On the mat, I mean, 2 to 3 times a week, I would think. But
Combined with seminars too. Going to seminars, I think, is real important. To see how.
give you bigger exposure.
Yeah, big exposure, and see if the Aikido you're doing really works, and test yourself that way. That's an important piece. And what's nice is there's many seminars now to choose from, and to take those risks and be willing to change also. To really investigate and see if something's not working, if you can do it a little differently, or and even work with your teacher if that's not working, or see what's happening. And I think teachers now are most oftentimes more accessible than they used to be, and willing to help out in the ways that in the old days it wasn't that way at all.
Yeah, but I think the more time in you put in, you have to. I mean, it's people think that every technique you do it's a win or it's a positive thing. You have to learn how to make mistakes. You have to. Part of the training is learning all the options, in a sense, good or bad, so that you can make mistakes and you can understand how to do it correctly, but understand if you do it incorrectly, that there's consequences. So you have to understand how to be flowing, in the sense that once you have the correct technique and movement, that there's variations. You can go into the variations as well. And I think that to get to that stage, you have to do more and more time in. Otherwise, you'll take several lifetimes.
What's the role of ki in your practice?
Open doors.
Skeleton key.
Yeah. So it's a skeleton key. It opens all doors. Well, ki is sort of a flow of energy, what the thing is, and in Japanese they talk about sick. If you're sick, it's byoki. So it has to do with byoki. So whether it's the essence or energy or whatever, that's what it is. So the Aikido. So there's a lot of ways of learning how to foster or train or to have a strong ki, and one way the priests and monks used to do it was by breathing, among other things, breathing exercises. And so the thing is that if you go without food, you can go without food for couple of months. Without water, you can go a little longer. Without air, without breathing, you expire pretty fast. So the thing is how to be able to learn how to control your breathing. And if you can control your breathing, you can control at least part of your actions and reactions to stress in everyday life. And part of the training that monks used to do was meditate, learning how to breathe so that they can control their inner self, which affects their physical self. And they used to say that if you did zazen or sitting meditation, it takes about 20 years to be able to have a center that can connect the key of the universe, and you're sort of the conduit for the key of the universe, the energy of the universe, universal energy. And Aikido, they talk about Aikido being moving meditation, which means that you can move and do techniques and still be connected to the earth or the ground or the universe and still control your energy. And Aikido is a way of dealing with your energy flow and interacting, since you control the energy flow within yourself, interacting with the rest of the universe, which starts with a partner or opponent that you can deal with one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-many, one-on the world. I mean, so learning how to deal with yourself gives you more confidence to deal with one-on-one and with the rest of the world, I think, in a sense. My 2 cents.
Wow. Well, I think for us it's really looking at getting younger people involved. You know, we have a population of people that have been training for a really long time and are still very much into it, but are getting older, and to mentor younger people and get them involved and excited. And our society is changing, and people are looking so much to physical activity and physical exercise and as they were before. And so how do we present Aikido in a way that that appeals to people, like, you know, in terms of that are maybe not as physically active or something. And I think we do, you know, Aikido does have a role there, where you take Aikido from a physical environment in the dojo and learning how to move your body and the somatic practice of Aikido to taking it out into the real world, where emotionally and socially you're using Aikido to make the world a better place, and that's the challenge. And so for us as senior people, it's like, well, how do we do that, and how do we get people in and get excited about it, like we were when we were younger, and I think that's going to be an important piece to keep it going. And right now, Aikido, I think, is you go through ebbs and flows, and like a sine wave up and down, and maybe right now we're a little bit of a trough, and we'll see it come back and make an upturn. Right now, younger people are very much enamored with MMA and other fighting arts, where they're winning and losing and fighting, but 3 or 4 years in, your body's not going to last, and so then you just can't do it anymore. Where you want a lifetime practice, and Aikido is one of those that you can do for a long time, and it appears that as you get older, you actually get better at it, because you're more efficient, and you use less energy, physical energy, but you have a lot more ki that you've developed over time, and you know how to channel that and how to pick up other people's ki and redirect that, and so in that way it looks effortless because of the time you put in the practice, and you're tapping into a whole different energy field than just that physical realm, and touching someone in a way that you can right away feel in their body what's happening, and move that energy, and so sometimes it looks like magic or something when you bounce people back, but it works, and so if you need to get people excited about that.
Well, Aikido means how to coordinate the mind and body. It's a path for learning how to control the mind and body. And so Michael was talking more, emphasizing about the technical part of it. But the other part, which is it's sort of like, so everyone's in different wavelengths or different movements. And if you have a calming influence, your calming influence will affect the other person as well, so that you can release or reduce stress and other things that's happening in this world right now. And we're getting to be much more, the world is getting to be much more stressful. And so the whole issue is how to deal with stress, and which ends up to how to deal with yourself, and then again how to deal with other people. So the more you can control yourself, you can't control other people, but the only thing you can do is control yourself. And to do that, breathing, keep your ki, keep your yourself together and use your vibrations, in a sense, to help other people in your area that can be affected by your calmness or whatever. And that's basically what I think Aikido is in the long run. That's what it should do. Hopefully will. I mean, since they really talked about world peace, whether that'll ever happen, I don't know. But the whole idea is that it's hard to control the masses, but you have to deal with yourself and one person at a time. And the more you have an effect on one person and this transfers over, the bigger the pool of calmness is, in a sense. And hopefully it'll be bigger and bigger, that it'll overcome more of the stress, or at least be able to deal with the stress. So.
One last question.
We're on, man.
All right. So, Freidl Sensei, what has your relationship with Takeguchi Sensei done for you?
Well, it hasn't helped me win the lottery, but I'm working on that. But it's good. Numbers have been bad, but thanks anyway. See, what's it done for me? Just to know someone. He's been my teacher and my friend and my mentor, and to know someone that carries himself in a way that with a lot of integrity and heart and feeling and compassion, and he's an incredible role model. And I've had that for it's going on 45 years. That he's been in my life, and it's been a wonderful journey. And he's given me this gift of teaching me Aikido, and me in turn being able to pass that on as well, and teach, and we continue to still be friends, and interact, and share, and have great conversations over what we're doing and how we're thinking, and what our students are doing, and what we're working on personally. And what I'm always impressed by is every time I see him and we're talking to each other about what are you working on, we're oftentimes working on very similar things, except that he's thinking of things in a little bit more sophisticated way than I am. And he'll go like, well, have you thought about this? And I'm like, no, not yet. So I think that's been an interesting process for me to watch not only him develop, but then see, reflect on my progress, and then to see what an influence he has had in my Aikido, both in terms of technique and also attitude, and how I've become a teacher, and how I like to be in the world, And so it's been very, it's made a really positive effect on my life, for sure.
And Takeguchi Sensei, having Freidl Sensei as a student, what's that done for you?
Well,
it's headaches.
Yeah, a few headaches early on, maybe off and on. But the thing is that, to be a teacher, I think the biggest satisfaction of being a teacher is to have your student be your equal or surpass you, and I think that that's happened. So I think that means I must be at least an okay teacher.